What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and I'm sorry that I haven't made a video in a while. It's just I've been really busy and I haven't had a lot of time, but we now have 3 weeks worth of WandaVision episodes, so we have episodes 5, 6, and 7 of WandaVision to talk about that I have not talked about yet. So, I thought I would make a video talking about these 3 episodes. I've written down a bunch of notes for each one, so I'm going to be going through my notes for episodes 5, 6, and 7 of WandaVision, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So, yeah, these are just my personal opinions for the most part, and I want to point out what I think is wrong with the show and what I think is good about the show. I try to be fair, but sometimes it may seem like I'm swaying to a certain side too much. I apologize, but I'm just trying to be honest about my opinions and what I think the problems and strengths are, or the weaknesses and strengths are of this show. So, starting off episode 5, one thing that stuck out to me as being kind of weird is we have the Hayward guy, the director of S.W.O.R.D., and he just basically says, we now have footage of Wanda stealing Vision's body from a S.W.O.R.D. facility, and we didn't have access to this information before, or something like that. Like, we did not have permission to disclose this information or something. But it's like, bro, you're the director of S.W.O.R.D., Nick Fury's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, you're basically the Nick Fury of this operation. If anyone should have access and permission to disclose this information, it's you. And the only reason I see for that, like, them writing that in such a lazy way, is to have just a way that they will know how Vision's alive. Because, like, in the last episode, they were like, how's Vision alive in there? And now they know how he's alive, and they apparently did have this information, they just didn't have permission to disclose it or something. So it's just a lazy way of basically saying, we need a way for them to know about Vision being alive. So we're just going to write this in, and it's so lazy. I think that's such a lazy way of progressing the plot, just through convenience like that, and just poorly written exposition. Just really lame. That was really lame. Then we have Vision's side of the story. Now, Vision's side of the story could be interesting in this show, but it feels like they're always squandering it, and he's just very inconsistent. Like, in that episode, they're like, how was she able to resurrect Vision without the Mind Stone? And they're just like, I don't know. Like, they don't explain how he's back and, like, using powers like this weird, like, this weird power where he can, like, free people of Wanda's, like, possession or whatever, or I guess Agnes's possession, and just kind of, like, let them speak freely and, like, be like, okay, I'm trapped, I'm scared, when he, like, talks to that one guy at his job. So, like, it's just like, how does he have these powers? Because the Mind Stone was destroyed, then it was brought from the past, and then it was, like, brought back in the past, and it doesn't exist anymore in this current timeline or whatever, according to Endgame, which I really just like to ignore the logic of Endgame, because I just really don't want to think about that movie, so I try to ignore it, but every time something else, some other movie or show in the franchise brings it up, it's just kind of sucks me out of it a little bit. But yeah, it just, Vision's side of the story is very inconsistent, because, like, at the end of this episode, he goes up to Wanda, and he's like, what aren't you telling me? I don't remember my life. But then in the 7th episode, he does remember weird details, like the fact that Pietro's an imposter, which we'll get into later when I talk about the 7th episode. But it's just very inconsistent, because in the next episode following this one, he kind of forgets about the whole mystery he discovered about Wanda controlling people, and then he discovers it again in the next episode, which motivates him to try and leave the Hex and contact the S.W.O.R.D. agents or whatever. So it's just inconsistent, and it makes him not really a fun character to watch, because he's just really boring. Like, he's always, like, he's just refiguring out the plot in every episode until the plot decides that he can't keep forgetting about it. So then in the 7th episode, he just doesn't forget about it for some reason. So, just weak. It's just a weak writing, in my opinion, and Vision's kind of plot line could be interesting if executed better. But ultimately, it's just not executed well, and then that just makes me think, wow, they're just undoing the stakes of the previous movies by having him be alive again. Like, maybe he will die again. Who knows? And then I can like say that I was like happily say I was wrong. But like when we had Infinity War, we were like, wow, Gamora, Vision, Loki, those are staying dead. And it's like, oh, now we have, they're back, they're alive again. And don't give me the excuse about, oh, Gamora's a different Gamora and Loki's a different Loki. They're still the same actor. They're still basically the same character. The Guardians of the Galaxy are going to catch Gamora up on what's happened, and she's going to return to them and be friends and be the same character. Ultimately, that's how it's going to end. So, no, they are back, and it's just there's no stakes anymore. Like it bothers me because Infinity War is a solid movie, I think, in many respects, but they're just trashing it now by just undoing everything. Just undoing the consequences of everything that happened. So yeah, that's just kind of what I have to say about Vision's whole plotline. Then we have the dog that they find. Sparky, Wanda and Vision's kids find a dog, and then they raise the dog, but then it dies at the end of the episode because Agnes poisoned it, as we find out later in episode 7. And the kids are upset, and I guess the only reason she did that was to try and get the kids to age themselves up so they'd be in better shape when she gives them to Mephisto or whatever, if those theories are true about Mephisto existing in this universe or whatever. So I guess that's what the point of that was. But it's basically ultimately the dog being in the episode is only a way to just unsubtly like tell us exactly what Wanda's fractured mind looks like. And it's like, I don't need you to tell me how Wanda's feeling. I've seen the movies, I've watched this show, I can tell from her actions that she's not a stable person. I don't need you to spell it out for me in this moment where she goes to her kids. We can't reverse death, even, like, no matter how sad it makes us. It's like, I get it. You did the same thing with Vision because you were so depressed. You wanted him back, so you brought him back to life. I get it. I don't need you to tell me that. I don't need you to spell it out for me. I like subtlety. I just miss when the Marvel movies, like Phase 1, like, I just miss when the Marvel movies had subtlety. Like the end of Captain America. I had a date. I miss the subtlety. I miss it. It's gone. It's no longer here. They're just spelling everything out, and it's just becoming very irritating. So the dog only existed there to be an annoying way to spell out Wanda's whole, like, depressed state of mind. Okay, great. And then Pietro shows up at the end, and it's Evan Peters from the X-Men franchise. Now, I have not watched those movies that he's in. The last X-Men movie I watched was, like, The Wolverine, so I did not see, like, Days of Future Past or whatever the other ones were. So, I have seen clips with him in it, though, so I did know who it was, but I didn't have, like, oh my god, it's Evan Peters! I was just kind of like, oh, okay, it's the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. Okay. Like, I didn't really have a crazy reaction. Like I guess some people did. So I was just like, okay, whatever, he's there. And then that episode ends, and it was like, okay. So then in episode 6, I guess this one was okay, but it just the whole thing, just the whole kind of, just the whole show overall, it's just uninvesting for me. So I guess I can say that this one had the least, like, jarring and, like, upfront flaws, plot holes, and contrivances. But it still wasn't investing for me to watch. Like, it was just like, okay, they're going out for Halloween. They're wearing their costumes from the comic books. Vision finds out about, like, how there's people, like, further away that aren't doing anything because Wanda or Agnes is controlling all of them. We still don't really fully know that yet, if it's both of them, or, like, combination of both of them, or if it's specifically Agnes or Wanda, or I guess Agatha, I should be saying. But, so Vision finds out about that. Then he goes outside. He tries to leave to freaking talk to the sword guys. And he starts getting torn apart. And this is where it's kind of like, what? Like, so Hayward, as we find out in the next episode, was trying to bring Vision back online to use as some kind of military weapon. But if that is true, why would you want to let Vision get torn apart? Like, he doesn't know that if Wanda expands the barrier to save Vision that he will, like, he doesn't know that he will get sucked back in one piece. Like, he's getting torn apart when he leaves the Hex. So, but he's just standing there going, oh, he really wants out, doesn't he? And then Kat Dennings is over here going, no, save him, he's dying! And then Hayward's over here just going, wow. It's like, bro, like as we find out later, he wants Vision alive. So why is he just standing there watching him get torn apart? Why isn't he doing something about it? Why isn't he taking action? Like, it's just really stupid. Like, what? So that happens. Then Agnes is in the car, like, I'm going back a little bit, but Agnes is, like, sitting in her car. Vision sees that she's stopped near the edge of the Hex or whatever. And he kind of zaps her out of her mind, like, the mind control of Wanda, as we assume. And then she's like, oh, you're Vision, you're one of the Avengers. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know what the Avengers are. I don't know what the point of that was. Like, as we find out in the next episode, she was truly behind everything, apparently. So if that were true, then, like, they I get it. They did that as a red herring to throw us off her scent, to make us assume that she wasn't the true villain, even though it was kind of obvious. But, like that just creates more confusion, because, like, why was she waiting for Vision to come over to her? Like, I guess she wanted to give him more motivation to go outside and try and contact the people outside to tell them about, like, the danger that the people inside are in, but he was already going to do that anyway. So, like, that doesn't even do anything. Like he was, or, like, I get it. She wants him away from Wanda so she can manipulate her or do whatever she wants to her. But, like he was going to do it anyway, so I don't even know what the point, like, if they had a red herring in there where he, like, zaps her out of the mind control, as we assume, and it turns out she was actually in control of that and she was just pretending. If they had that in there, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Like, that's not a horrible idea, but the context of it doesn't make any sense. Like, she's just sitting there in her car, Vision comes up and goes, I'm going to contact the people of the outside world. It's like, yeah, we already knew you were going to do that. Like, that was your plan. So, like, at least from watching him, you can, like, infer, like, he doesn't say it outright, but it's subtly, you can infer that that's his plan. So why did she need to, like, I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me. So the red herring was, like, that wasn't a bad idea, but in execution, it was pretty bad, in my opinion. So they have that going on, and Pietro and Wanda talk a little bit, and she's like, why do you look different? And he's like, why is your accent gone? And they kind of have a little bit of banter, and then she sees, like, weird zombie Pietro with all the bullet holes in him, and just like she saw zombie Vision. So there's something going on there. She realizes that something's up. Like, obviously it's not the same Pietro that she knows, so there's something up about that. So yeah, that happens, and then she expands the world and saves Vision and sucks in Kat Dennings, and then the only people left outside are, like, Hayward and Monica and Jimmy Woo. So then we go into the 7th episode, and I've got to say, I think this is the worst episode since, like, the first few episodes, like first 2 to 3 episodes. This is the worst one by far. So we start off, and Vision is, like, going after, or actually, no, even before that, we start, and we see that Hayward, who was escaping barely from the Hex in a pickup truck with only him and, like, 2 other guys, now has a full encampment of freaking sword agents. It's like, okay, it reminds me a lot of the way they end Last Jedi, like Star Wars, and then in Rise of Skywalker, they've already built up, like, a fully formed resistance again. Like, it's that kind of laziness that I'm seeing here. It's like, okay, you ended off there, he's kind of on his own, and then it's like, oh no, he's actually got a ton of guys again. Like, I don't know, that just feels lame. It's just like, you build it up, and then it's like, oh, actually, they have a ton of guys again. I mean, I get that there's, like, a ton of sword agents all over the world, but, like, it would have been cooler to kind of have him, like, on his own. like, trying to accomplish his goal, like, his weird, like, goal or whatever it is that he's trying to do, turn Vision into a weapon. But that doesn't even make sense, once again, considering the fact that he did not take action when Vision was getting torn apart. So, whatever. That's just stupid. Then Vision tries to make contact with Darcy, and he's like, "Why don't you remember me? You were trying to save me," or something. And it's like, bro, you already know how this works. Like, it starts off, he seems to remember what happened, which doesn't make sense considering the past episodes where he kind of forgot about all the weird little things that happened. So, he just remembers for no reason, and then goes up to her, and doesn't remember that she's, like, under control of the Hex for some reason. Okay. And then he kind of realizes, okay, whatever, I have to snap her out of it. So then he touches her head, and then she's like, "Oh, I know you." And then they get in the freaking truck, and then he literally asks, like, one of the second things he asks is, "Who's the imposter Pietro?" Okay, let's flash back to episode 5. Vision, dramatic scene, screaming at the top of his lungs, goes, "I don't remember who I am. I don't remember my life before Westview." So, therefore, and also when Pietro showed up, he was like, "Who's this?" So, he doesn't know who he is, and I went back to the beginning of episode 6, because at this point, he and Wanda had not interacted since the beginning of episode 6. In that episode, she does not mention anything to him. He kind of asks her, like, what's wrong, and she doesn't tell him. Like, she doesn't say anything like, "Oh, Pietro's kind of off," or something. So, and I thought, okay, maybe when I rewatched the episode, I was thinking, okay, maybe, like, it cuts away and then cuts back and then he asks her. But no, you see the entire scene play out from when he first approaches her to when he snaps her out of it to when they get in the car. And the second they get in the car, he asks, "Who's the imposter Pietro?" Which doesn't make any sense, because he doesn't remember who he was and didn't remember who Pietro was. And he had never been given any implication that something was wrong with Pietro. No one ever brought that up to him. So, like, I don't even, like, Wanda's aware, but Vision doesn't even remember who he is, so therefore he shouldn't be able to know that Pietro looks different or acts different. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't take a lot to write a consistent story, but that's a pretty big plot hole. Like, this character's whole thing hinges on the fact that he doesn't remember anything. It's like, okay, so apparently he remembers specific things, but not other things. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I doubt they're going to explain that. It's just a plot hole. Like, it doesn't take a lot to write a consistent narrative. It's just very frustrating for me to watch. And that's just what has me trouble staying invested, is these tiny things they don't pay attention to that are just very bothersome to me. So that happens. He goes up to freaking Darcy. They start heading back to Wanda's house or whatever. And then Monica and Jimmy go up to their buddy on the hill or whatever, because they're trying to re-enter the Hex. And they meet up with their friend, and then they get a freaking tank, and then the tank gets blasted in, or like they're trying to drive through the Hex. And then they go, "Darcy's in there, and I'm going to get her out." They should not know that Darcy's in there. They weren't present when Wanda expanded the Hex. Like, they weren't there with the sword agents. They did not know. Like, they don't know if Darcy escaped. They don't even know if Hayward escaped. They don't know that Darcy's in there. No one told them that. So they just apparently know that Darcy's in the Hex, even though they weren't present when that happened. Okay, fine. Well, I'll just ignore that kind of stupid part there that didn't make any sense. So they should not know about that. And then Monica, after failing to drive through in her tank, is like, "I'm going to run into the Hex." Like, Monica, I hear a lot of people saying they really like Monica. And for me, it's kind of a mixed bag. Because, like, you know, the character is kind of okay. Like, she's the only character in the show that really has something about her that's investing. But at the same time, she's really stupid. Like, in the first episode we see her in, or in the fourth episode when we first see her as Monica Rambeau and not Wanda's neighbor inside the sitcom. The first episode there, the fourth episode, whatever. she decides to, like, they're like, this is a dangerous anomaly. Then she decides to friggin' walk into the hex and get sucked in against her will. Then in here, she's like, I'm gonna run into the hex with, like, nothing but a weird, like, agent suit on, like, hazmat suit, and I'm gonna friggin' run into the thing. Like, what? And so she runs in, and they play some dialogue from Captain Marvel from her mom and Carol Danvers, and it's just like, it just rings hollow, because it's like, okay, they have this whole thing, like, you're a really strong character or something, but it's like, she's just making kind of stupid decisions. Like, she's making split-second dumb decisions that anyone else around her would think are really stupid, and characters in the show do think they're stupid, and she just kind of succeeds at making stupid decisions. Like, I don't find that to be an investing character. Like, she wants to help Wanda because she's sad that her mom died, but then I think back to it and I'm like, oh yeah, you invented those contrived circumstances for how her mom died of cancer off screen. And then I'm just like, well, this just rings hollow. Like, she's the only character where I'm like, she actually takes initiative, like, she actually does stuff, and she's like, I want to accomplish this, and I'm gonna do it, but at the same time, she just makes split-second, like, mindless decisions, and I'm like, okay, at least you're taking initiative unlike anyone else in this freaking show, but you're still not really making smart decisions either. Like, Monica's a weird character. I really like, and then she goes up to Wanda and tries to talk to her, and she's like, Wanda, I know what you're going through, and I'm like, okay, great, whatever. So I guess that is kind of what I wanted back in the other episodes, where I was like, okay, I wanted a character to talk to Wanda and kind of relate to her and be like, I know what you're going through. So at least I got that, but at the same time, I wanted there to be actual build-up, like, we know the character and what they went through. With this character, we were just told what happened to her. Like, her mom died, and we were just told that. Like, we didn't see her journey. We've seen her as a kid, and now we see her as an adult, and we're just told what happened to her in the past. And we're supposed to care about her and really connect with her. But, like, I wanted a character, like I said earlier in my past video, like Eric Selvig, a character where we've seen what he's been through, and he would be able to relate to Wanda. Not just a character where we're told what happened to them off screen. Like, that's just a lame way of storytelling. So, that happens. Monica does some stuff. She gets superpowers when she's going into the Hex, so she's becoming a superhero like in the comic books, I guess. So, yeah, that happens. Then Agatha turns out to be the witch. Wanda, she takes care of Wanda's kids, and then Wanda comes home, realizes that they're not there, and then goes in the basement. Agatha's there. She's like, I was the witch. You think you're the only witch in town or something? And then controls Wanda's eyes and turns them purple. And then we have a little song playing. It was Agatha all along. And then you see her manipulating everybody, and she was controlling Pietro. So people are saying, oh, maybe she plucked Quicksilver from the X-Men movies and put him into the Marvel Universe. I don't really care. I don't really want to theorize. I just want to see what happens, and it's probably not going to be that good considering this show's track record. So that happens, and end of episode. And then we have Monica trying to get into the house, and then Pietro comes up behind her and goes, Snooper's going to snoop or something, so he's still around, even though he wasn't in the episode at all. So I guess he just left town and decided to come hang out again. But Wanda clearly does not like him, because she knows that he's not the same person. She's like, that is not your uncle. So something's going on. Something weird's happening. And Agatha was behind it. So I guess we're going to have a big fight with Agatha, because Agatha's actually the real villain. It would have been interesting to have the hero become the villain and actually, like, be the villain of the show. Like, the title character is actually the villainous type character. But nah. We just, of course, we have to have a bigger bad so we can have a big laser superhero fight at the end, like we do in every single Marvel thing, superhero thing. It's just, I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired of the superhero shtick. So, final notes. I keep saying that I just feel tired, and I just have difficulty staying invested, and it's because, you know, like I said in the past movies have done a bad job establishing this relationship, and this show has done nothing to make me feel better about it. Like, Wanda is being controlling, quite literally, and Vision is just kind of absent-minded, like doesn't know who he is, trying to do the right thing, and then Wanda's being psychotic, as she's been in the past. So I don't really feel that much sympathy for Wanda. She's just being crazy, and it's hard to stay invested. It's hard for me to stay invested in these characters, and not just because of the way they act, because so many of the characters in this show are just so inactive. Like, they're just sitting around. Hayward wants to apparently turn Vision into a weapon, but when Vision's being destroyed, apparently decides not to step in. And then you have freaking Monica's the only character who's actually taking any initiative, or actually Vision is too. Monica and Vision are the only characters taking initiative, but their characters are so inconsistent. Vision apparently remembers stuff sometimes, but doesn't other times, and Monica just makes really absent-minded decisions most of the time. So, the two characters that actually take initiative in this show aren't really that smart, despite flashbacks and other characters telling them that they're so great. They're not actually that smart. Like, they're not even very good characters. So that's why it's hard for me to stay invested. It's just, the writing's messy. Every episode, there's a new thing that's invented to progress the plot, like, in a very unnatural manner. Like, they just have information they didn't have before for no reason. And, characters apparently remember things that they didn't before for the sake of the plot. It just feels so forced and unnatural. And I get what they're building to. They're going to set up the multiverse, which leads into Doctor Strange and Spider-Man 3 and all these other movies. But the thing is, this show is not striking the balance between being a good story and setting up other things. You know what was good? The Mandalorian Season 2. That had so many characters. It had Boba Fett, Ahsoka. It was setting up all these shows. But it was fun to watch, and it was investing, and you cared about the Mandalorian and the baby and Grogu. You cared about these characters. They did a good job establishing them in the first season, but the problem is this show's only going to be one season, most likely, and there's just nothing happening. Like, it's just contrivance after contrivance, plot hole after plot hole, depending on sitcoms to cover up what's bad about their writing. They're just copy-pasting and different genre, and also just recycling the same formula they used before, like the Sword Agent base, like with all the tents, is a complete carbon copy of the shield base that was surrounding Mjolnir in Thor 1. Like, it just feels like they're copy pasting. And then also the thing that I gave them at the beginning, like that I would give them in the first couple of episodes of the season, is like they were black and white, or the cameras they used in the sitcom world were different. The production looked different. Like, they were differentiating it a little bit in the direction. But now they're not even doing that anymore. Like, the cameras they use for the outside world and inside the sitcom are the same. They look the same. There's no distinction being drawn through the direction, which is something I gave it originally was, okay, there's no distinction being drawn through the characters, but there is through the direction, like between the two worlds, Wanda's sitcom reality and the real world. Now there's no distinction being drawn in either the direction or the characters' actions, and it just pulls me out of it. It just feels like despite it being like this kind of serious concept, and it's not a bad concept. Like, the main character, the whole idea is that this whole world she's created is a way to cope with her trauma. That's not a bad idea. But the problem is the way it's executed. Like, it's just, I guess you'd call it sitcom fan service in a way, to cover up the fact that their writing is really bad. Like, there's no distinction being drawn. It's repeating the formula. There's no balance between good storytelling and setting up other stories. It feels like it's all just based on setting up future stuff. Benedict Cumberbatch will probably show up at the end of this show as Doctor Strange to lead into his movie where Wanda apparently is going to be in it. And it's going to lead into Spider-Man 3 where Tobey Maguire is going to show up. And they're going to explain that Quicksilver came from the X-Men franchise because Agatha plucked him from there and brought him in here. Like, it's all just set up. Like, it's all just set up for X-Men coming into the Marvel Universe and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. It's all just set up. And there's no hook. Like, all the characters stay inert. They don't like to do anything. The characters that actually take initiative are kind of stupid, and it's just difficult for me to stay invested. It just feels like there's a lack of subtlety. It just bums me out, because like it all feels like setup and no good stories. Like Captain America 1, people say is bad. I love Captain America First Avenger. I think it's actually a pretty well-contained, self-contained story. And all those movies, like Iron Man, even Iron Man 2, like the Phase 1 of the Marvel movies, I think is probably the best one, because when you watch Avengers, after watching those movies, you feel like that's just genuinely the payoff of watching those. Like, it feels like it was building to that. And it was also just fun to watch those, like movies like Iron Man, Captain America First Avenger. They were nice, self-contained movies. They were fun to watch in their own right, but they were also building to a larger event, which was satisfying when it paid off. Now it just feels like all of it's set up, and it's not fun to watch. Like, I'm watching this with my dad, because my dad, like, has to work all day, and he sits in his room, because of COVID. So I'm watching this show with my dad, and I also want to stay up with the times and keep catching up with the modern stuff that everyone's watching, right? But I personally don't like the show very much, and I wish that Marvel was doing better. I wish they were trying more. But it just feels like they've lost the spark. They've lost the creativity. They know how much money they can make. They know how popular their franchise is, and now they're just coasting. They're coasting on money, and they aren't trying anymore. They aren't trying as hard as they used to. I don't find this show entertaining. I just find it to be a drag, and it just makes me sad, because I wish that Marvel was doing better. The reason why I'm watching it, once again, is because I want to watch it with my dad, and it's something fun to do with him, and I want to stay up with the times, and also I just want to give my feedback, because I want to see what Marvel's doing, and I'm not impressed. I think it's pretty weak. I don't think this show is very good, and who knows? Maybe the finale is going to pay it off excellently or something, but yet again, a payoff depends on the rest of the build-up actually being good, and I don't think the build-up in this case is very good. It's just a pretty weak show. I think that the 5th episode is probably the strongest one, despite having some contrivances. Episode 6 was okay, but even then, it's just so just repeating the formula, just uninvesting. Like it's just a boring show. It's just not fun to watch for me, and it's just revolving around a bunch of characters that I just don't really care about, and that the show is not giving me any reason to care about, because they just kind of act stupid, and they stay inert, and they don't realize what's going on around them. Like, I don't really like watching characters that are stupid and make stupid decisions. Like, I like characters that take initiative, but I also like characters that are smart and take initiative, and the characters in this show that do take initiative are not very smart. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the episodes 5, 6, and 7 of WandaVision, and I will probably make another video in 2 weeks once we've got the final 2 episodes, and we'll talk about it, and I'll talk about what I think of the entire show. But thus far, we're more than halfway through. We've only got 2 left, and I'm not impressed. I'm not really that impressed. But, if you guys have the complete opposite opinion, like, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think, this show could be better? Do you think they could have told a better story rather than just being set up entirely? Do you think it's actually great? Do you think it is a good story? Whatever your opinions are, please let me know in the comments below. Do you completely disagree? Once again, I'd love to hear your opinions and your thoughts. These are my thoughts and my opinions, and you don't have to feel compelled to agree with me. You can obviously disagree if you would like to, and we can have a nice civil discussion in the comments below. But of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.